I smiled. Sophie, wasn't last night your wedding night with Ethan already? She froze for a moment, and I sneered. I've already informed our friends and family that the wedding is cancelled. I wish you and Ethan a happy life together. Sophie exclaimed. Kyle, have you thought about my parents? They're your professors. Do you have no conscience? Can't you see how embarrassed they'll be at their age to face this? I took a deep breath and replied, oh? When you were shamelessly doing those things, did you ever think about how embarrassed your parents would be? You even posted half-naked photos with Ethan online. What else is there to be embarrassed about? She glared at me fiercely and gritted her teeth. Fine, I'll promise to have less contact with Ethan in the future. Is that good enough for you? Don't be so unreasonable. Who doesn't have ex-boyfriends or ex-girlfriends before getting married? I was just going to say goodbye to my past love. After all, I was going to marry you today. You're making a big deal out of nothing. Looking at her disdainful face directed at me, I truly regretted the past few years. Why did I ever fall in love with such a person? I showed her the photo Ethan had sent. I'm not so in love with you that I'd let you walk all over me. I'm not going to marry you with a smile while you cheat on me. I've packed your things. You might as well take them with you. Otherwise, I'll have the cleaning staff throw them out. With that, I pushed the suitcases out and slammed the door in her face. Sophie shouted at the door, Kyle, don't you dare regret this. I ignored her outburst and closed the bedroom door, allowing myself to finally get some sleep. The next day, when I turned my phone back on, it nearly froze from the flood of messages from concerned friends and family. I replied to a few important ones, but then I saw a message from Sophie's father, my professor, urging me to come over as soon as I could. Thinking of how kindly he and his wife had treated me over the years, I felt a pang of guilt and decided to visit them. As soon as I walked in, I found Sophie sitting on the couch with her neck stiff and her expression defiant. Kyle, didn't you say you weren't getting married? What's the point of convincing my parents to pressure me now? Can't you have any shame? Professor Smith stood up and said, enough, Sophie. Is this how I've raised you? You're disappointing me greatly. Sophie shot back, I'm my own person with my own thoughts. I'm not a puppet that you can control. Just because you want me to like someone doesn't mean I will. I've only ever loved Ethan, she continued. Kyle is the one who doesn't want to marry me now, not me calling off the wedding. Why blame me? Isn't Kyle the good son-in-law you wanted? Tears filled her mother's eyes as she said, Sophie, look at what you've done. How can you expect Kyle to handle this? How could you and Ethan do such things? Sophie gritted her teeth and glared at me. Even if I agree to marry you, my heart doesn't belong to you. My body and soul have always been Ethan's. Feeling hopeless, I stepped in front of the professor and his wife. Looking directly at Sophie, I asked, when I pursued you, did I ever force you to do anything against your will? Did I pressure you when I proposed? This relationship has always been based on your consent. Why now claim that it's me or your parents who are pressuring you? I thought I was a good boyfriend all these years, but I never expected you would view our relationship this way. The professor's hands trembled with anger. You keep saying you love Ethan. Do you even know what kind of person he is? What he has done? You're clearly under some kind of spell. Sophie looked defiant as she faced her parents. You did those things to Ethan without him blaming you. He just told me not to be angry with you. And yet here you are criticizing him. You're the ones with no conscience. Her mother slammed her hand on the table. What have we done? Sophie scoffed. Do we really need to go over this? You took Ethan's spot at school and gave it to Kyle. Kyle, don't pretend. Everyone knows your spot was earned by sucking up to my dad. The professor clutched his chest, gasping for breath. What did you say? I've lived my life honestly and now my own daughter accuses me of using underhanded tactics for a student? Sophie stood up dramatically and declared, isn't that true? If it weren't for being your daughter and Ethan encouraging me, I would have reported Kyle and you long ago. The professor turned pale and pointed at her. Good. I raised a wonderful daughter. Go ahead and report me. Now get out. Get out. You'll regret this, Sophie shot back as she stormed out. Just watch. I'll make sure Ethan gets what he deserves. With that, she slammed the door behind her. As the sound of the door echoed through the room, the professor collapsed. Professor,